Hi guys, welcome to Outpost 18. My name's Liam. This is Darklight Memento Mori, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Courtesan. Now the Courtesan's quite an interesting character. Can be a little bit tricky to play, so probably best not a starting character, but we're going to go through this and see what you can and can't do with her. So to start off, she's got one melee one melee attack that hits on the 3+, which is very good, and also a ranged attack, which again hits on the 3+. So that's solid. That's really good. Her belt size is 1 though, so that's pretty atrocious and can actually be a bit of a problem when it comes to needing things like bandages and stuff like that. So just be aware of that. She's got a health of 14, which is pretty decent, but the sanity is very low at 5, so again, that can be a bit of a problem. She's got a few special rules, so she may not attack prone characters, and you cannot wear items with the keyword heavy armour, and you also gain 1 melee attack if either hand slot is currently free, which is an interesting one. And leadership, you may take your turns in initiative order or wait until another character has finished theirs. That's actually really good, especially when you're playing as with other Accursed in a party, because it means that you can kind of jump in and out the front line, especially with your rapier, which we're going to have a look at in a minute. So stat wise, 3 strength, perception 3, mind 3. That's all pretty average. Charisma 4, which is a good stat. I'm not sure if it will help you that much, except when you go shopping at the marketplace. Her agility is 4, that is good, but her endurance is 2, so her stamina is going to be pretty low to begin with. Right, so let's get into the cards and see what she can do. So she starts off with, I think, some of the best items in the game as far as starting items go, and you will probably carry these with you all the way through the campaign, to be perfectly frank. You get the rapier, which is a brilliant weapon because you may move 1 square before or after dealing this attack. Ignores threat. So every time you attack with this thing, you can move 1 square before or after attacking, and that is amazing, especially when you can ignore threat. There is another rapier, a rare item, which does the same thing, I believe, called the Vestigian rapier. It's pretty much the same thing. The only difference is it does an extra damage. So both of these weapons have that rule. They both give you +1 melee attack, which is excellent. So if you don't have a weapon in your offhand, coupled with the Courtesan special rule, you're actually getting +2 attacks. So you can start off with 3 attacks, hitting on a 3+, which is excellent with that ability to move. And that movement is for each attack, so you can move a lot with this character. The attack is 1d6 damage. The Vestigian rapier is 1d6 +1. Now, what is a problem with these items though, is that according to the rules verbatim, you are not allowed to smith up an item unless you found it in the marketplace. So the Vestigian rapier you definitely can't do much with, so it's 1d6 +1, and that's not enough to carry you through the campaign. The standard rapier, I mean, technically this hasn't come out in the marketplace. We've kind of house ruled it that you can smith this one up, and actually we're kind of the opinion that if you aren't allowed to, it becomes very difficult for the Courtesan to actually make her way through the campaign, because she does start to drop off a cliff in terms of damage when it comes to the later levels, when you start facing demons of like endurance 7 or higher. It becomes a real problem because 1d6 damage doesn't cut it. So it's interesting. Otherwise you have to forego these weapons, and that means you lose a lot of skills. There are lots of little perks and things which are really based around using a rapier in 1 hand. So it seems a little bit odd. but you can get into a situation where you just can't cause any damage if you can't go smith one of these things and add in an extra d6 damage against demons using Demonite gold and a wad of cash. So anyway, those are the rapiers. They're very good, but how far you can legally take them through the game is up for debate. Certainly you cannot smith the Vestasian one. Can you smith the other one because it's a starting item? I don't know. You could potentially dual wield with them. That would get your damage potential up, but then you're going to lose the +1 attacks that the things are granting you, and that's a bit of a problem. And also then you have another rapier in your offhand, which means you don't get the +1 attack from that either. So if you do go down the dual wielding route, yes, you can actually put out some damage, which is then meaningful, albeit 2d6 plus your strength is still pretty low. But you're going to lose a couple of attacks just by doing that. So it's complicated. It's a tricky one. You also get the Widow's Guard, which is very good. It's a ranged firearm, range 5, attack 1d6 plus 1 damage, and can only be fired once per turn. Can be used even when adjacent to enemies. That's excellent. Critical hits resolve damage, then the weapon jams. This means it can no longer be used until the end of combat, so that's a bit of a pain. But the fact that you can use this when you're adjacent to someone is excellent. So as starting items, they're great. Long term, certainly you won't be using the Widow's Guard forever. The rapier, I think it really depends on whether you're allowed to smith that thing or not. Certainly the Vestasian you can't, it's a rare item. So getting into the skill cards, of which there are quite a few. Again, as I habitually do, I'm going to start off with the ones which I think are definitely worth taking. So we have Point Blank, which is a little bit like the Outcast one. You may use ranged attacks even if enemies are adjacent to you. In fact, it's probably identical to the Outcast one. Either way, that is excellent. And I strongly encourage you to go shop for the wrist crossbow. They're not overly cheap, they're like a few hundred gold, but that does mean that you can then get those firing in addition to your rapier, potentially in addition to your Widow's Guard as well. So Point Blank, go for that, get some wrist crossbow action going, and it will just add to the weight of attacks that you can throw out. This next one, Never Leave Home Without It. It's Aggressive Defense level 3. When you have a weapon with the keyword sword, which I believe the rapier is, yes it is, equipped, and you evade an incoming attack. Incidentally, go big on evasion with this character. Armor's okay, but she probably benefits better from evasion. So when you evade an incoming attack, you may deal 1 melee attack against your attacker after they have dealt their attacks. That's excellent. It's not quite as good as the Black Knight's one, because the Black Knight's one, the parry and riposte, you get +1 to hit, but she hits on the 3+, so that's still excellent. So those two skills are brilliant. And this one, Swordmaster, you gain +1 to hit with all attacks dealt with weapons containing the keyword sword. That's excellent. So you're going to be 2+ to hit. Those 3 skills there are brilliant. What you take beyond those, however, it starts to get a little bit tricky. So we're going to go through a few. Now I really like Inspire, which is a level 1 skill. You can spend 1 stamina point to inspire yourself and all allies in line of sight. These effects last until the end of this round, or until used. Inspired characters gain +1 to hit on all attacks for every 3 charisma points of the duelist. So she starts on charisma 4, I think it was. So giving yourself and everyone around you the ability to hit on 1+ for the cost of a stamina is brilliant. That's a really, really good skill. Definitely worth taking, because that's what's the difference between hitting and not hitting, isn't it? And for a lot of characters, +1 to hit is going to make a massive difference. strongly urge you to go for that one. It's very good, and later on you can make that even better. Idolize, the effects of Inspire can now be used twice for each round by those affected. So does this just affect a single attack? Inspired characters gain +1 to hit on all attacks for every charisma points, and then this says the effects of Inspire can now be used twice for each round by those affected. I'm not sure if you need Idolized, but it's there. I'll probably be inclined to not take that one and maybe take something else instead, but certainly those 4 are really good. So then we get on to a plethora of other cards, which are a little bit strange. They kind of take you down other routes. Maybe it's going down those other. Maybe it's worth going down those other routes. Maybe not. But we're going to have a look at them. So wrist gun, which I don't mind. Once per combat, add 1d6 to the damage scored by a melee attack. That is good, and that is a way of getting around the problem with her rapier if you cannot smith it. However, it is only once per combat, and combats do drag on and on and on. So you're not going to get a lot of mileage out of this. The only way to really make this work, and obviously this is just my opinion, is then you start piling more skills into this branch. So you've then got double barreled. You may use your wrist gun attack up to 2 times per combat. And it goes on and on. We have Trident, where you can do it up to 3 times per combat. And then we have Revolver, where you can do it up to 4 times per combat. So if you fully invest in this branch, it is very useful. I'm still not convinced that's going to stop her from falling off a cliff damage-wise. And you've got to put 4 skill cards into that, which is horrendous. So to get those cards I talked about previously plus those, you're looking at a level 8 character, which is quite big beer really. So I don't know if that's worth investing in that route or not. They're nice, but to really make it work, you've got to sink a lot of skills into that. So that's a tricky one, but it's an option. It's nice. Getting that extra d6 damage is certainly nothing to be scoffed at. There are some other slightly interesting ones here. So we've got maintenance. Attacks made with firearms cannot jam. It is a nuisance when guns jam, and the kind of high damage weapons can jam. Whether or not I'd want to waste a skill card on it, I don't know. Because for me, skill cards are precious and they need to be doing something all the time, and that is very situational. But it's an option. You also have Untouchable. When you have a weapon with the keyword firearm equipped, and you tumble away from an incoming attack, you may deal 1 free ranged attack towards anyone whom you have tumbled away from. I do like that one. I think that's good. But there's a dilemma here. You start off with 2 endurance, so you don't have a lot of stamina, and you do need to get that up because you need evasion. You're also going to need strength though. However, she is initiative 9, so you don't need to really do anything with initiative. So you could maybe, when you get your first tattoo, maybe look at the Hecaphant one, I think it is, which gets you an extra stamina, I believe. That will help. That's a nice skill, but where do you stick your stat points? Do you put it in strength, or do you put it in endurance to increase your armor and your stamina? It's a tricky one, and you're not going to get many chances to increase those stats because you only increase stats at even levels. So you've got to think very carefully about that, and if you can get any items which increase your strength or endurance, then they're definitely worth going for the Courtesan. There's also Firearms Expert. The rule which states you can only fire once with firearms no longer applies to you. As long as they are one-handed weapons, you may fire as many times as your ranged attacks allows you to. Again, you're kind of sinking a lot of cards into this, along with the maintenance one. I'd almost be inclined not to bother with Firearms Expert and Maintenance. I would personally not use them. I would probably find it better to go for a wrist crossbow, because you're not going to have those restrictions. It's low strength, but again, you could smith that and put an extra d6 on it versus demons. So you've got 2d6 plus perception. I think that would be quite good, along with the Untouchable, which gives you a free ranged attack when you tumble. So that's probably the route I would go down. I think investing in these firearms, I don't think it's good enough. But that's just me. I mean, you could play a firearms one and give it a go, see how it works out for you. So then we're going to get into kick territory, which kick's a bit unusual. So before or after your movement or attack phase, spend 1 stamina. Remember, stamina's precious for the Courtesan. To push one character of base size 1 by 1 away from you by 1 square, then deal a number of damage equal to your strength value. Well, that's not going to do anything, because your strength value is what, 3, and it does say damage, not wounds. I mean, if that was wounds, then that would be a different story, but 3 damage isn't going to affect anyone, so I don't find that particularly useful. But am I reading this right? Then deal a number of damage equal to your strength value to them. That's what it says. Well, 3 damage isn't going to do anything. Then we have trip. Your kick skill will also make an enemy prone after damage has been dealt. But then your noble honour says you may not attack prone characters. So I'm finding all this a little bit strange. So far, the kick branch of skills isn't really doing it for me. Then we've got Hidden Blade. In addition to your strength, you may also add your agility value to the damage caused by kick. So that's useful. You start getting into damage 6 territory, but again, it's not going to do enough damage to hurt anything. So that's 3 skills there spent on trying to essentially polish a turd. I don't think it's worth it. Then we have Swipe. You may now deal your kick skill to 3 adjacent characters. So you can knock a load of people on the floor, causing not a lot of damage, and then you're not allowed to attack them because they're prone. So I may be missing something here, and if I am, please do point it out in the comments, but for me, these 4 cards here, they're going into the poop pile, I'm afraid. Along with Firearms Expert and Maintenance, I just wouldn't touch them. So, however, Untouchable, I do like. That's quite good. Then we've got a few miscellaneous skills left. Just to wrap things up, we've got Mechanical Hook. You may move to a different elevation without the need to use stairs. If you are threatened, you may move away without the need to tumble if the first square you step on is at a different elevation from your current position. It is so situational. It really is, to the point where I don't think you're going to get much mileage out of that. So given how, as I said previously, precious skill cards are, I just wouldn't go down that route. I would probably forgo that one. Then we have Dignified Recover. If you have been made prone, you can get up during your movement turn. Sorry, you can get up during your turn without having to use your movement points. It might be useful. It's not a bad skill, but I think there are better ones you could take. I would like to think that you wouldn't be prone because of the movement you get with the rapier, and allowing you to get behind other characters and let them shield you, like the Black Knights and the Nephilims and Exorcists and stuff like that. So get in, do your thing early because you're initiative 9, then move back out of harm's way. So I wouldn't expect to have to use that, but it's not a bad skill. Then we have Fencing. If you have 1 hand slot free and successfully evade an attack, so that kind of works well with the whole one-handed thing, gain an extra attack. You will use your entire evasion score. So that is good. Do you like that one? So I'm just going to remove Dignified Recover for a minute. So as a miscellaneous skill, that's quite good. And then we have Challenge. Use 1 stamina, remember stamina's precious, to challenge an unwounded monster adjacent to you. They can accept the challenge, turn the monster to target you. Melee attacks from this monster suffers -1 to hit. When taken as a trophy, you'll be awarded double the number of souls. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it. For me, I mean, this is not a straightforward character to play. Its main problem is damage. It just drops off a cliff when monsters start getting to like level 5, well, 6, 7 territory. So I would try and do yourself a favour. Go for your point blank, your aggressive defence, your Swordmaster, your Inspire. And then we also had Fencing, I think it was, which is a decent skill. And then Untouchable, where if you tumble away you can do a free ranged attack. So those are the ones I would go for, which is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 cards there. And then maybe you start looking at things like Idolised, where you can do Inspire multiple times. And maybe you look at this Risk Gun, where you're getting an extra d6 and damage once in a blue moon. So that's the Courtesan. So it's a bit of a tricky character to play. Starts off really, really well. Excellent starting character. But when you get to that midway point, she does become very difficult to use because the damage just falls right away, and you end up just dancing in and out of combat, just poking something with a needle, doing very small amounts of damage, and you can keep doing that, and the damage does start to add up. But at best, you're only going to be maybe taking out 1 monster a turn, and you compare that to something like again the Outcast, which is levelling the stuff, or the Black Knight's cleaving through things. The Black Knight's going to take out probably a couple of demons a turn. The Outcast will take out swathes, because that's what it does, and the Nephilim will fell a few. So even the Exorcist can take out 1 or 2 a turn and do kind of area damage as well, a bit like the Blood Witch. But this character, it's difficult to take out more than 1 character a turn, unless you're allowed to go smith that starting item, that rapier, and get an extra d6 damage in that. That makes a big difference. Otherwise, I think you're looking to find that second Vestagian rapier, and bear in mind that's a rare item, so chance of finding that are low. And then you dual wield with that, or maybe you can just go buy yourself a basic rapier, if you can even get those in the marketplace, and I'm not entirely sure that you can. So it's a tricky character. Yes, you can use other weapons. You can forgo the rapiers and maybe use a double-handed sword or something, but she has no skills to help her out in that department. I mean, that's kind of what the Black Knight's for, or your Nephilim and etc., or Exorcist. She's not really designed for that. And yes, you can give her a shield. Again, she's not going to have much damage, a bit more armour maybe. But I think this character is better with evasion. I think she's better with 1 rapier in her hand, so she benefits from all those funky rules. But you just have to find a way of getting the strength up, otherwise your damage output won't last towards the end game. Anyway, that's my review of the Courtesan. Tricky character to play, but yeah, if you have any comments, please leave them in the comments section. Thank you.